So we're going to get started with our next slide. Did we manage a slide person? All right. So what is assistive technology? Does anyone, without looking, have a good definition? No. Okay. Well, fine. It's right up here. It's any piece of equipment or product system, whether acquired commercially, off the shelf, modified, or customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of children with disabilities. Still confused? That's okay. The term does not include a medical device that is surgically implanted or the replacement of such a device. So that's a very wordy, lengthy definition. And so to solve that for all of our visual learners, we have a video for you. There's a website at the end of the video that if you choose to write down, that's great. If not, you can always get these resources off the Edmodo as well. Whoops. Back up. Oh, you're not in preview mode. What did I just do? You didn't open it in the Google Doc? Take a break.
We all like to do things, like color, and read, and use a computer. It's how we play, learn, work, and get things done. But when a disability makes it hard to do something we'd like to do, we need a little help. Luckily, there's a solution. Welcome to Simply Said, Understanding Assistive Technology. Assistive technology, or AT, is anything that helps you do something you couldn't do otherwise, like walk, run, communicate, and more. These helpful tools can be as simple as a foam grip that makes it possible for a child to grasp a crayon and create art, as common as glasses that make it possible for a student to read and learn, or as sophisticated as software that makes it possible for an employee to convert their spoken word to text on a computer screen and succeed. Whether you're young or old, male or female, whether you've had a disability from birth or developed one over the years, AT can help. Finding AT is easier than you might think. Every state has an Assistive Technology Act program to help you find AT. In Minnesota, it's called the STAR program. You can find it at starprogram.state.mn.us. To find a program like STAR in another state, check out the Association of Assistive Technology Act programs at ataporg.org. There are also many AT centers, including Pacer's Simon Technology Center, that you can find at pacer.org/stc. The STC's consultants help you explore the numerous technology options available. Its lending library lets you try different kinds of AT to discover what works best for you. So now you know a little bit about AT. It helps you do something that you couldn't do without it, and it's available in every state. This has been Simply Said, Understanding Assistive Technology. Video style inspired by Commoncraft.com. Produced by the Pacer Center.
All right. Whoa, there we go. Okay. Whoops, present. All right, so they just gave you a few of the examples there in the last video, but assistive technology can be low-tech, like a communication board made of cardboard or fuzzy felt, and I don't know if we have any of those around there. It can be very high-tech, such as a special-purpose computer. It can be hardware, such as prosthetics, attachment devices, some mounting systems, we're going to show those to you a little bit later, and positioning devices. It can also be computer software. It can be inclusive or specialized learning materials or curriculum aids. I have software on there again. It can be much more, including electronic devices, wheelchairs, walkers, braces, educational software, power lifts, pencil holders, eye gaze, and head trackers. And different disabilities require different assistive technologies. Assistive technology includes products and services to help people who have difficulty speaking, typing, writing, remembering any information, pointing, seeing, hearing, learning, walking, as I'm learning with my new assistive technology. Be very careful, don't feel sorry for me. I was in a conference in August and a lady had a similar injury and I was like, oh, that's horrible. 2 weeks later. Don't feel bad for me. No, this is great. All right, and we have one last video that just kind of shows some use of this inside the classroom, and then I'm going to hand it over to Tegan, who's our expert in AAC, and she's going to kind of go on from there.
Okay, so that gave a lot of good examples of assistive technology and a lot of the issues and problems that we come up with students that need some extra little help to be able to function as well as possible in their environment. So I'm going to go into what is AAC. AAC is augmentative and alternative communication. It is a form of assistive technology, so they all kind of get lumped together. AT could mean anything, and then AAC is a portion of AT. So for augmentative and alternative communication, those big words, what do they really mean? It basically means any way we're going to communicate other than using our speech. And it affects a wide variety of individuals, students, and such. And we actually use AAC in all different, it's used in all different ways. Go to the next. It includes all forms of communication that are used to express thoughts, needs, wants, and ideas. We all use AAC when we make facial expressions or gestures, use symbols or pictures, or write. People with severe speech or language problems rely on AAC to supplement existing speech or replace speech that is not functional. So we use special augmentative aids, such as picture and symbol communication boards and electronic devices are available to help people express themselves. This may increase social interaction, school performance, and feelings of self-worth. That's really important, the self-worth. We were talking about this earlier today, that the main goal of AAC is we want to bring what the individual understands to the level of their expression. So if they're not able to communicate to us what they understand, that's where we all come into play to get them to that part so that they can communicate to the level of their understanding. But then the other issue is we want them to function socially, communicatively wise, to their level of understanding as well and be part of that group. So a good example of that and showing a variety of AAC is just by, I'm going to use my buddy here, Anna, another AAC expert. So if I walk up to a student who's nonverbal and I say hi, she looked at me. She said, hi, that's communication. That's something I want to encourage. If she's nonverbal, she could move her hand. I say, hi. She waves back. That's great. She communicated to me. If she can't do either one of those, I can say, hi, Anna.
Hi, Tegan.
And she can say it back to me. If she's maybe using our friend the iPad, I could say, hello.
Hello.
And she can say hello back to me. So it's just an example of different ways that we can use augmentative and alternative communication to do a simple thing is say hello, and everybody, that's one of the biggest things I have is every child and every student should have ability to do a reciprocal type of communication that everyone else is doing in that classroom. You got to pick your little goals and you want to make them be part of that because that's huge. So, so now we're going to watch another short video. This one is short on AAC.
Augmentative and alternative communication, also known as AAC, is a way for an individual to communicate when they do not have the physical ability to use verbal speech or writing. AAC systems are designed to help people express their thoughts, needs, wants, and ideas. AAC can range from a simple set of picture symbols on a communication board up to a computer system that is programmed to speak with words or messages. AAC might be a temporary system that is used while a child's speech and language are developing, or might be the individual's primary means of communication for a lifetime. AAC is used by those with a wide range of speech and language impairments. Common causes for severe speech disability include congenital conditions such as cerebral palsy and autism. Also, many people acquire conditions that result in the loss of speech. Some common examples include amyotrophic amyotrophic lateral sclerosis or Lou Gehrig's disease, head injuries, and Parkinson's disease. AAC can help people who are not able to talk at all. It can also be a helpful strategy if a child is talking but is difficult to understand. The use of AAC strategies can help children improve their ability to interact with others and to communicate better at home, at school, and in the community. Using AAC can also help decrease inappropriate behaviors, such as crying or tantrums that are often due to the child's difficulty with communication. There are a wide variety of ways that people access AAC. Access is the way an individual makes selections on a communication board or speech-generating device. Some of the access methods used for AAC include direct selection by pointing or reaching, scanning using a switch connected to a device, head pointing, and eye control. Selecting the best way to communicate can be a complex process. It's important to get an evaluation by a group of professionals who are qualified to evaluate the necessary skills to use an AAC system successfully. An evaluation should involve a team of professionals working together. In addition to the AAC user and his or her family and caregivers, this team often includes a speech-language pathologist, a physician, an occupational therapist, or physical therapist.
It's you.
All right, so if you look around the room, and we're expecting a few extra people in here that aren't here, we had some examples around the room on these Post-it notes of low-tech and high-tech pieces of technology. Please take 3 or 4. And over here in this corner is a high-tech poster, and here's a low-tech poster, and this is your pop quiz. Just from what you've learned so far, is what's in front of you a high-tech piece of equipment or a low-tech piece of equipment? Have fun. Say hi to your neighbor. Yes, move. And if you get it wrong, there is no punishment right now. We're going to do it again at the end. Just kidding.
Don't scare them.
Yes.
And then is it going to me already or no? Yeah. Okay. No, I'm not. Oh, that's right. That's right.
So a lot of stuff on high tech. You can give them a grade if you want.
Here, I'm gonna squish my.
Is this one of those soundboards?
That's an IntelliKeys,
Okay.
just like a keyboard that you can modify.
This is, we're thinking, right? Do you think this? I think this.
Okay, very good.
Sure. I don't know if this is electronic or not.
It's an electronic book.
Okay.
So it's an ebook.
Probably high tech.
Do you know what it is? No.
Do you want me to bring this up to you?
And if you're a little confused about what some of these items are, don't fear, because we're going to talk about almost every single one of them. So, Anna, do you want to look at the high-tech devices over there and give me a grade? How did they do?
Let's see. Pretty good. They're, I'm going to say,
B plus. B plus.
Okay, we're giving you guys a B plus over there. And Jen, how did they do on their list?
That's A minus.
A minus. All right, not so bad. Yes.
A plus.
Thank you to our virtual people. They're naming high-tech and low-tech items right now.
Oh.
Very impressive. Thank you, virtual
Yes, we're gonna talk
participants.
about that.
Okay, so just in case you looked at a couple of those and you're like, well, I don't know where it goes. AAC and AT, as we said before, can range obviously from very low-tech items, pencil grip types of things, to very high-tech items. Well, we've got some more of those low-tech communication books, yes/no switches, pencil grips, adapted book page turners, something as simple as sticking a cotton ball between 2 pages of a book, low-tech device there, slant boards, etc. And then we have our very high-tech things, which can range from eye gaze systems, where you just look at something and it's going to select what it is that you're wanting, to speech generating devices, as you saw some examples here, word prediction software, touch screens, adapted keyboards, adapted software, and lots more. So we're going to go a little bit more in depth into those. So when you think about your classrooms, you probably have these things in your room and you never thought of it as technology before, but it ranges from everything. All right. I have another friend up. Would that be you, Anna?
That's me, yes.
Okay.
All right, so now that
Microphone. Here you go.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. God, I'm not used to having a microphone. Sorry about that. Okay, so now that we've discussed a little bit about AT, assistive technology, now we need to figure out, talk about who needs it and what do they need and how to figure it all out. So that leads us to the whole assessment process. So basically, who needs assistive technology? Anyone who is struggling to access or participate in the curriculum or school environment. So for example, in your circle time, is there a kid who's not able to select a song? Are they not able to talk and participate in that circle time activity? Or maybe you have a student who has motor impairments and they're not able to grasp a paintbrush or a pencil to learn how to start writing. As soon as you see that student not participating or beginning to struggle, how quickly, carefully, and efficiently. And so we assess, we do the assessment, and then we intervene. So when we say quickly, we want to do it quickly because a lot of times assessment plans, are we all familiar with assessment plans, are an issue. We have 60 days, but we have to be careful, though, to not be too quick. Because if you're too quick, sometimes you overlook things, but a balance is good. Benefits, obviously, it improves the student's self-concepts, improves self-esteem and provides motivation. You know, when you have a kid that wasn't participating in a circle time activity and then all of a sudden you give them the power to participate through a very simple switch, it's very motivating that they can interact just like their peers, very motivating. Reduces frustration and behavior problems. You know, sometimes I go on assessments, we get referrals and a student is having a behavior issue, and sometimes it's all stemming because they don't have a way to say what's wrong, that they're hungry or that they're tired or that, you know, they want something. So sometimes it does help with behavior problems, not always, but sometimes it does, a lot of times it does. Increases participation in daily life, facilitates learning by making learning interactive instead of passive. You know, so you don't have a kid sitting there in the corner falling asleep just passively listening. I mean, you know, it's not very motivating when you're just sitting there and being lectured to, not have a way to participate like your peers. And it changes expectations of others for a child's potential. So if you know a student has a way to say something, you're not just going to pass them up. You're going to allow them to have that opportunity to participate. Okay, so now where to start? So this slide just really demonstrates that assessment is a very dynamic process and it's ongoing. So you start with your assessment and it leads to equipment being ordered. And then once that equipment is ordered or that material is made, it's not always equipment that you order, sometimes you make things, right? And then you use it for a while, that would be the intervention and the implementation. And then sometimes you find out that it's not really working or the student is ready to move on to something different, they need more. Then you come back and do another assessment and then more intervention. It's just a big dynamic process. And I have a really good example of a consult that I've been doing for the past year, and it's with this little girl in preschool, and she was very involved. She had some significant vision and motor impairments, and she was not able to talk, but age-appropriate cognition. So she was 3 years old, and I was called out to, well, what do we do? She's got all this potential, but no way of really participating like her peers. So she had really good use of her feet. So I said, okay, well, let's get her on some computer software, and she can practice switch scanning with her feet. And let's give her, so, she can interact with, and, she can learn with the computer, interact with her activities that are in the classroom with the computer. And then we need to give her a communication system. So I said, okay, well, let's look at using a communication book and, practice partner-assisted scanning with those auditory cues. And so it was a great team, a great teacher, great SLP, great OT, and they did it for a while, and then they called me back 6 months later, said, okay, she's ready to move on. What do we do now? She's got these things mastered. So I came back out and said, okay, well, let's look at a communication device. And because she was able to she had lots of practice using her feet to do switch scanning, and she was using a communication system, we were able to get her a device, so it was really nice. So now I'm just waiting for them to call me back and what's next, right? So it's dynamic and ongoing. Yes.
Wait, we need a mic.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
If you have a preschool child that it's a private preschool, so they're not the district preschool, where would they start these assessments? Oh, you're getting there? I'm jumping ahead. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Okay, so we're going to talk about that because working for the County Office of Education, we have access to lots of different professionals, but sometimes people don't have access to a team. So we're going to talk about how that works. So when the question of a child's need for assistive technology leads to an assessment, right, like what you're talking about, the first action is to identify a team of people to address that question. If the school district already has an identified team, then a request for their assistance is made.
So Anna,
Yeah.
I think the answer to the question would be, well, I have a mic.
So I'm going to talk about that. A lot of times referrals are made to outside
If it's a
agencies.
private preschool, you're probably going to contact their district.
Right.
That's what the family will, the home district.
Would suggest them go to their district.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So what that looks like on our team is many times districts don't have access to a team. So what happens is we have a referral process, and they will fill out a form, and they send it in to our wonderful manager, and then she says, here you go, who wants it? So there's a referral process. I know some schools, there's other agencies that provide assistive technology. We're just one option. And some school districts have their own team. So, can't do it by yourself. On our team, we have speech pathologists, an OT, a physical therapist, a teacher, an audiologist, and we consult with vision specialists very often. So we have a nice big team. Did I forget anybody on our team? So, and if you're having a question about a student and you're thinking, well, how can I, even if you're not wanting a full-on assessment, right, you're just saying, well, maybe assistive technology would be useful for my kid, don't try to figure it out on your own. If you're that classroom teacher, definitely turn to your speech pathologist, your occupational therapist, your vision people. It's too much. I mean, myself, I turn to Jennifer all the time when I have a question about where do I put this communication device? How is the kid going to access it? I can't always figure it out. I even turn to my fellow speech pathologists and say, oh, can you come and give me a second pair of eyes and tell me if I'm on the right track? And, many times the vision people too. If a kid has a vision impairment, I want to make sure that I'm figuring it all out right. So we should not do it by ourselves at all. Oh, yes.
When you're talking about an assessment, is it just high tech that you're talking about assessment for, or are you talking about all types of AT? Even what if the teacher has already developed a communication device for the child, like a visual schedule or a communication book, or even she went out and bought like pencil grips? I mean, at that point, you wouldn't necessarily have to do a full-on assessment, how would you determine what extra things a child might need?
Well, I would say, well, are they able to access everything in their curriculum? Are they able to participate all throughout the day? If the classroom teacher, if your team feels like, well, no, there's holes there, maybe more can be done. I think that is the big point, is when, is the kid participating all throughout the day to their fullest potential? And if they're not, you feel like, okay, there can be more to be done, then you need to think about, does a referral need to be made? Yes.
I just wanted to add, and I was thinking that sometimes the teachers might be doing all the stuff, and there are SLPs in the district that do it, but you could always ask a team to come and consult with you. You might already have things in place. It's not required that the assessment has to be a full-blown, as you just asked. It just could be a just simple consult to just see if there's anything else that we can add on.
Or as Anna had mentioned, referring to your OT, or the classroom teacher might have knowledge themselves of what to do. I mean, it's just the big thing is if there's holes there, you want to make sure you're accessing whatever you need to fill them.
Okay, so say your child does get a device, so they have a device at school, but what about for home? I mean, is the district, do they have to provide one for home as well? For instance, if say they're using a Clicker 6 at school, will they be providing that for the home setting as well? Do you know?
Okay, so there's lots of law, assistive technology law. I don't have the whole book with me, but I do know that assistive technology law states that the Can I say this? It's okay. It's legal. Okay. The law does state that if the child needs assistive technology in order to access FAPE, okay, at home, so like for homework, then the law says that the school needs to provide that assistive technology at home, right? So.
And can I add on to that too?
Okay.
I have my microphone.
Oh.
So especially with like the Clicker 6 and that kind of stuff, if it's software, what I've run into a lot with districts is they will not load that onto your home computer. They prefer that they load it onto a laptop or whatever the student's using at school, and then that goes back and forth because of licensing issues. But again, if a student is required to bring homework back, that's part of their grade, and they're using Clicker 6 to do the homework, then they need to have access to that. That's kind of what I've heard for the.
Yes,
But
it's true.
Can be creative.
Yes, but it is law, yeah, and it does come in, and I do get that very often when I go out to do. I'm sure all of us do when we go out to do assessments and make recommendations. Districts a lot of times are worried about sending that home, and what we do at and I share our form all the time, at the County Office of Education, we have them sign a form that the parents sign that states, I'm going to take care of this. I'm not going to throw it in the swimming pool. I'm not going to let my kid jump on it. I'm going to take care of it as best as I can. And if damages occur because, I was letting, we threw it out the window or something, then we'll take care of it. So a lot of times I will share that with the district, our form, because it does make districts nervous sometimes sending equipment home. Do you find that, everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. But it's a law, so. Okay, so the assessment process usually goes as follows. First, of course, you identify the need, the problem, where is the student not able to access the curriculum, participate? What are they struggling with? What problem-solving strategies have you tried already? And maybe what worked, what didn't work? What help does your team need and who is available? And, at this point, you might need to say, well, we got to put in a referral because we need more ideas. Even if it's not for a full-on assessment, a consult sometimes can be just as beneficial. And then, of course, refer to your specialist. I keep saying that over and over, but it's don't try to figure it out. I don't try to figure it out on my own. It definitely needs to be a team effort. When I go out to do assessments, what I usually do is, well, what I always do, I go out and I do my initial observation and I try to find out, well, where are the holes, what's missing, are they participating like their peers? If not, why? And then I try to think of solutions, and then the next time I come out, that gives me ideas of devices to try or software to try with them, and then we do some trials. Sometimes I leave equipment in the classroom. I also do testing as part of it, formal testing. I'll just show you some of the things I use, because I do assistive technology assessments as well as AAC assessments, but we have, here's one, developing a written productivity profile. It's a good one. I use TASP. You can look at them. And then a big one that actually everybody has access to is the WADI. And it's an excellent resource. It's free, it's downloadable. Anybody can download it. Even if you're not doing a full-on assistive technology assessment, you can go through here and get ideas for maybe, where can I start? I mean, it's huge. So if you just do a Google search on Wisconsin Assistive Technology Initiative, and you can come up and look at it.
The references as well.
Yes. The WADI goes through everything that you could ever want to know about assistive technology. I just can't believe that this is free. It's an excellent thing. I'm not going to go in detail, but it goes through seating and positioning and mobility, communication. I shouldn't go. You're welcome to come up and look at computer access, motor aspects of writing, composition of written material, mathematics, looks at organizational skills, vision, recreation and leisure, goes on and on. And then in the back, there's a chapter on each topic. So there's like a huge chapter on AAC. I mean, it's like humongous, it's huge, and it gives you ideas and different technologies to try. So this is front to back, so it's actually 500 pages, but it's free, like I said, and it's I usually just take a packet out with me, and it's got checklists, and it's a very useful tool. So then after I do all that testing and I look at the WADI, I write a report, and then we have IEP goals. And then the next step, a very important step, is an implementation plan, and I have handouts back there. Did everybody get an implementation plan? Where's mine? Did you all get one? So we can look at it. Okay. So the implementation plan basically is your accountability sheet. It goes over who is responsible for what. So it's very helpful at an IEP meeting when you're going to order, especially if you're ordering a lot of equipment or you're going to make things. It kind of gives responsibility to who's going to make what, when they're going to do it, who's going to order what, who's going to do the training for it. So, for example, implementation team could be the SLP, the teacher, the parent, of course, the AT specialist. Equipment that can range from high to low tech, communication book, and then who's going to make that communication book? Well, the SLP is going to make the communication book. If the kid needs switches, who's going to order it? Just little details like that are important. It's really useful. It even has a place for the IEP goals, because that's important, especially if you're going to access low incidence funds. It's important to have a goal that mentions all of the recommendations or the equipment that you're going to order. Okay, any questions about that? That's assessment in a nutshell. We could have a whole 3-hour conversation about it, but okay.
So now we're kind of discussing AT in the classroom. What does it look like? What is it? What can be done? So for one of the categories, AAC, Augmentative Alternative Communication, why would a student need AAC if it shows a documented difference between comprehension of language and ability to express it? Again, getting that receptive and expressive language at the same level, and demonstrates delayed expressive language or if their speech is not understandable to those around them. So examples. We have communication boards. So we have communication boards, we have icons, we have eye gaze with icons, we have voice output devices like the switches, and device with speech synthesis, meaning that it's not our recorded voices, it's computer generated. It doesn't want to talk for me right now. Okay. So if we can go to the next slide. So within AAC, we do have low tech and high tech. We also have, it's sometimes referred to as unaided and aided. Sometimes you'll see no tech, low tech, mid tech, high tech. We were having a discussion today. It's very, now with our age of the way our world is now, it's not really cut and dry what that exactly means. Basically, low tech, no tech, unaided, you're kind of talking about stuff you make yourself, your icons, things you put batteries in, but now even your high-tech devices might have batteries. So it's basically, when we're talking about low tech, we're kind of talking about more simple, more basic, plug it in, go, put the battery in, go, static. It's not going to involve a lot of training, a lot of programming to be able to do. So like we said before, the examples, we have the switches, we have our communication books, and we have our Go Talks. And one of the things that's really important, and we included it as a handout, we're not going into in depth today, but one of our big things with language, especially when you're dealing with symbols for students, is it's not all about nouns and verbs. It's not all about what you want. Yes, that is power of communication. That's extremely important for us to teach our students. But the most important thing is, okay, once you get it, what do you do with it? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Did you eat it all up? Was it yummy? Was it yucky? Is it disgusting? Is it gross? I'm mad. I want to go do what they're doing. I don't want to sit here with you. I need to be able to tell you that. Not necessarily, I want the jelly bean, I want the cookie, I want the candy. You can tell I have food-motivated kids I've been working with lately. So that boot camp paper we gave you, it just kind of gives you a lot of good do's and don'ts about if you are looking at using symbols with your students. So we just wanted, it's one of our favorite things that we have, so we wanted to share that with you. And then for high-tech AAC, one of the funny things when I was looking this up for an actual definition of high-tech, I thought this one was funny. It says, is any communication system that requires a power source and requires training to program and maintain the device. I thought that was kind of simple, but kind of interesting. Anyways, there are a variety of high-tech devices for communication, and there's lots of different manufacturers, and there's lots of different type of devices. And that's really when, like someone asked earlier, when you really do want to look for an assessment, because part of what we do is we come out and we're trying a variety of different devices because there are so many different available. And each one also has different languages. And some languages are similar from one device to another and some are not. And so it just really, like for example, we have the Dynavox, and the Dynavox has Gateway, and it also has Interact. Thank you. I always want to call it inclusive. Interact. And then for the same sense, we have the iPad. Can you hand me my iPad, Giuseppe? So for the iPad, you also have lots of different apps that have dynamic screen programs. And one of the ones we do like, we like a lot of them, but one of the ones that's nice is TouchChat because it has a variety of different vocabularies. And so it'll range from a very simple, like 9 vocabulary to 15, all the way up to 60 with word power. And those are This is kind of a good example of dynamic display. So we don't have an overhead, I'm sorry, but we'll walk around, and when you touch it, it's going to another page.
To turn it down.
So you're going to touch it, it's going to take you to another category, and then you can keep communicating. So you're going to be able to communicate faster, be able to keep going. Touch chat is what this one is called, yes. Touch chat. Sorry, trying not to talk too fast.
Ugly. I see.
Okay. And let's see. Oh, and then, so that was kind of a brief overview of the AT and AAC, items in the classroom. But one of the things I did where it's kind of crossing over, of course, on the iPad, now there are things like you can put switches on an iPad where it's just a single switch. There is another app for classrooms, which is called Verbal Me. And I'm sure everybody's laughing because I really like it for classrooms. But it was actually made for teachers to be able to use with students who are young, who cannot necessarily communicate in the classroom. And it has static pages. It's not dynamic. It just has static classroom pages where it has like one page is my turn, your turn.
My turn. Your turn.
Again, so another example of when you're doing a group activity, everyone's raising their hand. The child who can't communicate can touch it and say my turn. Has another example, it has food items. It has like the bathrooming schedule of what you would need to do. Science for animals. Feelings, happy and sad and angry, or mad. So only 3 choices, that's good. We don't want to go into our 19 different facial expressions. So anyways, that's kind of a good thing as well. Okay? Verbal Me. They actually have a free trial. It's not as good. And then Verbal Me. Then the Verbal Me. Verbal Me free or Verbal Me.
And we actually at the county we offer some trainings that are free. So if you pick up our brochure on the back, we are giving some trainings soon about communication apps and social stories apps, and we talk about free ones. So if you're interested, you're welcome to come. It's free. You just go to the OMS. Okay.
Okay, so we're going to talk about other areas beyond communication where we do a lot of assistive technology with positioning and mobility. So if I go into a site and I'm doing an assessment, first of all, we need to see, can a child move around their classroom? Can they move around the campus? Can they go to the bathroom? Can they go to the playground? So we may look at gait trainers. If we can go to the picture, please. We may look at gait trainers and walkers, or a dynamic stander so that they can access all areas and be at the same level as their peers, not always be down in a chair. We want them up and at eye level and out on the playground with their peers. We may look at other positioning devices, maybe just an adapted toilet seat, so that they don't have to be laying down on a changing table. They can be on a regular toilet just with a little bit of adaptations and extra support. Or else that's okay. Or we may look at some adapted chairs, they may need a lot of support with their head and their trunk and their legs and the armrest, or we could be very simple. A lot of these chairs, even the ones that you're sitting in today, the classroom chairs, they do that posterior pelvic tilt and the student is like this, and then we're asking them to use their arms in a functional manner. That's very difficult. So sometimes we can just do a basic wedge. We could be made out of foam, it could be made like this out of, with a little air in there, just to get them sitting upright, and then they have that motion with their arms. We could be looking at, again, just going from very simple to very complex seating systems like that. Let's see, what else? In regards to other types of equipment. You see there is a wheelchair mount. Once they have their communication device or a laptop or whatever else, we do a lot of mounting. You can see that there's mounting for the iPad. This can actually go onto a table, be mounted onto a table or onto a wheelchair so that a student has access to it throughout their day, not just when they're sitting at their desk, but when they're out on the playground and they want to be able to communicate with their friends, that they have access to it all the time. So again, there's custom trays that could be built for all the different types of laptops, iPads, minis, communication devices, and everything like that to make sure that a student has access to that throughout their whole day and not just when they're sitting at a desk. Okay, go to the next one. All right, now for reading, and I think we have to go a couple down for the pictures. Okay, that's fine. We'll just up there. Okay, so for reading, different types of adaptations that we look at, and we have some examples up here. A reading pen for students just who have difficulty with some words. They just can't sound out the more difficult words. A reading pen is great. They just scan right over it. It reads it out loud to the students so they can hear what word that is, and it also gives them a definition to help them learn. If they need more than that, we can look at accessibility features that come standard on an iPad or on a PC or Mac computer that will read the text out loud to the students. There's other things such as Bookshare, which is free for qualifying students. They have to have qualifying disabilities, but it's hundreds of thousands of textbooks that are available as ebooks, and it's read out loud to the student. It highlights it as it goes along, so it helps the student follow and track, as well as learn as they're watching it, the sight words. And they can actually highlight stuff too, and it develops into a what am I thinking of? The outline. Thank you. Outline for the student. So it's very interactive that they can use. There are other ebooks available and audiobooks that the students can have access to as well. If they have difficulty reading it themselves, have it read out loud to them, so at least they're still getting the content. And again, if it's highlighting as it's going along, they're still learning how to read with that. There's talking dictionaries and thesauruses, and reading bars and masking, which is available on some computers as well. So if students have a hard time, again, tracking or staying attentive to what they're reading on the screen, it masks the rest of the screen for them, and you can choose how much of the screen you want available so that it goes line for line, or about 1 inch of the text is available, and it helps them stay on track as they're reading. And other things that we use to help with reading difficulties are the text-to-speech. I know that there's a couple programs, the Read Out Loud, which will read the text out loud to the student, as well as Read and Write Gold, which will not only read the OCR text, but also it'll do the snapshot readers. So for text that typically cannot be read by a computer, let's say it's on a picture of something, it's not recognizable by a regular computer. It will actually take a snapshot, turn it into digital text, and be able to read it out loud to the student as well. Okay. Now for writing. We have a lot of low-tech things that we look at. Again, we have the slant board here. We use a lot of Dyson and stuff to hold things down. Adapted paper. This one has the raised lines on it. You can feel it with your fingers to help the students stay within the lines and not going all over the place. It gives them a little bit of the tactile feedback on that. You want to pass that around? Thank you. We have our weighted pencils, which give, again, some proprioceptive feedback in their hands. For students who have difficulty controlling their strokes, this just gives them a little bit of weight back in their hands so they can help feel and have more control over their writing strokes. And we have all of our fancy pencil grips. These are also weights for their hands. Again, same concept to get the proprioceptive feedback into their hands so they feel where they are in space, and also the weights on their wrists, which will help with that as well. And it can also be used just to give them the feedback when they're doing cutting and those types of activities as well. Thank you.
Raised hand.
Yes.
Is there a list of all of these in the body?
I think they give some examples.
There isn't like a...
There isn't a comprehensive list. I think it gives you some examples of things to look for or things that you've tried as kind of a checklist. I'm sure that not everything is included, but there is a good checklist that has quite a few.
So that would be the best resource to go to see
Yeah.
what all the options are.
Yeah, that's
what you
yeah,
suggest?
it's one. That's one? One of many. And there's lots of resources, but that's a good one to start with for a checklist.
Again, don't figure it out by yourself.
Your OT, if you have an OT on site, especially for the writing stuff, that would be a good resource. Let's see what else. Graph paper.
Yeah.
Again, is another low-tech thing. Again, to keep the students, not only for math, but also just for writing, to keep them spacing their letters appropriately, so they stay within where they're supposed to be.
Pencil grips.
Highlighters, and we'll talk about that. I'll give you an example of that in a little bit. Another low-tech thing. You can go ahead and go down. Thank you. Can you go down more? Or we'll go back to those. Thank you. Yep. Okay. Other things, more high-tech for writing. Word prediction. There are great apps available as well as software programs. Again, if you guys have updated your iPhones to iOS 8, now as you're texting, it's guessing the words that you're going to type, right? That's the same thing that's available on software programs and iPad apps. Co-writer, all that stuff. So basically for students who have a hard time with spelling, or if they are slower at typing, it's something to try, because again, it reduces the amount that they have to type themselves. It gives them the audio feedback, so it'll read it out loud to them so they can say, oh, I think that's the word. They can click on it, they can hear it, and then it would be entered into their document. There's other things to do for writing are the word banks, like the Clicker 6 and that type of stuff. You can do customizable word banks where the student only has to go and touch them and it's making a sentence. You already have it all kind of organized for them. Or just a few words just to help them think about what they want to say, and then they have to add in the rest. There's also ones that are already kind of formed for them about certain topics that you can download. So if you want to say, oh, well, let's do a topic about Halloween, let's download this whole topic. They already kind of have it all figured out for you as well. Or you can customize your own. Let's see. Other pictures, that's another thing that I use a lot with students who have a difficult time writing. They usually have iPhones now, a lot of my students, or iPads. Take a picture of the board. Instead of trying to write everything down, take a picture of it. Take a picture of your teacher's notes. Take a picture of your peers' notes. Instead of trying to write it down, they can still highlight so they feel like they're still doing something with the text and not just taking a picture. We can still adapt it so they still are involved as much as possible. But instead of not getting the content because they're not able to write and keep up with the rest of the class, at least we're finding ways to be able to modify their curriculum. Drag and dictate. I know a lot of people want to jump. They hear drag and dictate and they say, yes, my kid can't write. Let's put them on drag and dictate. It's a difficult software. I mean, you have to have a lot of cognition. You have to learn a language to be able to tell it to scratch that. And new line, and to be able to understand that you're talking to a computer and not just, you have to tell it to go to sleep so it doesn't hear your ums and your and all that stuff, but it's a great program for students who are higher cognitively, who are having a difficult time getting their ideas down on paper, to be able to speak it in. And you can go anywhere. You can, do your Facebook updates, and you can do your emails, and you can do everything else in addition to your classroom tasks with the Dragon. LiveScribe and Notability. So LiveScribe, the pen up there, is basically, it audio records. So if your teacher is giving a lecture and you're unable to keep up on the notes, it'll audio record what your teacher is saying as you're writing down. So you may want to write down your few key points. As you're writing down the few key points, it has a camera right up here. So you can then plug it back into the computer. It'll show you exactly what your handwriting looked like. And when you click on it, you'll hear the audio from that point. So instead of tape recording a whole lecture and going through it and listening to it, basically you say, oh, what was she saying about this topic here? And it'll start playing back from that point. Excuse me. You can also do it right on the paper as well. Go back, put your pen here, and this will start. It'll have a microphone that'll start playing. I have water right here. Yes.
Oh, the microphone.
How much does that cost?
Very cheap.
I think about 109.
109. You get it at Fry's.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
Something
Yes.
like that. Don't.
Excuse me. Yes, it's great. And it does come in bigger notebooks. There's 3-ring or 3-subject notebooks. And it's great. It holds a lot of data. And again, you can go ahead and either plug it into your computer to go back or just use it directly on there and hear it from your pen. Notability has the same concept. It's an iPad app. And basically you can audio record, you can take a picture of whatever worksheet or document that you're working on in the classroom, audio record what your teacher's saying about it, and use a stylus or add a text box and type into certain parts onto your document or just a plain piece of paper. And again, it has the same concept. You go back, you touch on it, and at that point it'll start reading back what the teacher was saying at that specific period of time.
We have a question. No, I just want to know the name of the pen again and the back.
That's the LiveScribe Smart Pen. Mm-hmm. And the iPad app is Notability. And that app, I believe, is $19.99. Yeah. Okay. I think, yeah, so these things here, again, is the reading pen, the Bookshare that we talked about. This is one of the word prediction apps up there. Again, with those, you can change the backgrounds, you can change the font. I know with iReadWrite, they have an open dyslexic font for students with dyslexia. And then this one down here, again, is word prediction. You can also add in pictures so that they have some visual to go along with their text as well. Okay. And we're going to go back up to the keyboards, please, and the mice. Yeah, okay. All right, so other things, a bunch of keyboards. We have the ones for students with visual impairments. They're big so they can see it. This one is a great starter for younger students here. I'm going to pass that around. Who just are learning the basic, where the keys are. This is an example of a keyboard with a key guard on it for students who have a difficult time isolating and depressing the button that they want. It gives them a little bit more feedback and structure on where to go. And these are some mini keyboards, and these again are just to give you ideas. You can think, oh, I have a student that may, that may be helpful for students who have a hard time reaching out in front of them or have small hands. I've used this one because they don't have to go very far. It can be right here if they don't have much mobility and all they can really get is right in front of them. That's a good option. And that's the same idea with this one. A lot of laptops I found have had the tracker right in front. So now they make them off to the side. So again, for the students who can't reach all the way out there, we need to keep it right here. They can kind of just go back and forth right there. So they now have this option available. This one is for a one-handed keyboardist. They have to be very high cognitively to use this. I haven't used it actually with any of my younger students at all. Typically, because they changed the format of the letters. So I haven't used it, but they are available for people who have only use of one hand. And who are capable. Yes.
Depending on what hand you're.
Yes. Other things up here that I wanted to show you, there are stickers available, again, so for laptops where you don't have the option of changing the keyboard as easily, they do have stickers that you can put on. So for students with visual impairments, you can use that. IntelliKeys is basically one that you can make up your own keyboard. If you want to just have the letters on there, if you want uppercase only, if you want lowercase only, if you only want numbers on there, it lets you kind of come up and customize your own keyboard. Okay. Yeah. And then other computer access things that we use, we have different types of tracking balls for students who don't have good fine motor skills, kind of use their whole hand. They can just roll over it and be able to click. Just pass those around. This one here, you're able to change actually what they're holding on to. You can put a tall stick on, so if they can just do a toggle and go back and forth. It comes with a ball for students who can kind of just rest their hand on there to move it around. And again, it has the key guard so that they can depress the buttons in there as well. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. I'm going the wrong way. For math, I think that's where we're at. Reading we did. Computer access writing. Math. Ideas for math may be helpful. We have talking calculators for students who need the auditory feedback. Again, as they're putting their numbers in, we have the large keyboards for students with visual impairments or, again, motor issues that we need to look at. A lot of graph paper, also software programs such as MathPad, and they do have iPad apps as well. And again, it's almost like a graph paper but electronic. Keeps it all lined up for you as the student's inputting their numbers. It actually will put it down. It'll help them with their borrowing and carrying. It'll show them exactly where it goes and keeps it in the line. Has virtual manipulatives on there for fractions and that type of stuff so that they can see manipulatives. If they don't need them in their hands, they can do it virtually as well. So those are some ideas, again, for issues with math. Other things in regards to learning and studying strategies, we talk about audio recording the lectures. We do have students audio record their own notes to themselves, their homework, so they can just put into the Dragon. The Dragon app for things like that is fine. If they're going to compose longer things, I would definitely go towards the software for Dragon. But if they're just going to say, do page 15 in my social studies book, that's a great thing with the Dragon app. Visual schedules, again, that's available. iPad apps now have them. Use icons, come up with things like that. So again, to help them keep on track, we have our visual time timer. For students who have a difficult time keeping on track or keeping attentive to a task, they can see actually the visual time, set it for 15 minutes that they need to work and complete it, And as that red goes down, they know, oh, I better hurry up and get my work done. That, I think, is also available now on an app as well. Everything's on an app. Highlighters, again, we'll talk about that. Okay. Any questions so far? All right. There we go. Yeah, my sample case. So this is this is an idea of a student that I was working with. They had a really hard time. They had dysgraphia. They were dyslexic. They had a hard time getting their written work done. They could read fine. They understood what they were supposed to be doing, but then they couldn't get it out onto paper. So this assignment, they were asked to read an article, write down what the cause and effect was in that article. So they were, again, getting behind on their work. So what we decided to do was we were going to highlight cause in yellow, and they would come in here and they would highlight what the cause was. And then for effect, we highlighted that in orange, and they came into the text and highlighted what the effect was. And that's their answer. Instead of struggling to try to get it written down, those little simple modifications that they can still, you know that they know what they're doing, you have the understanding there, yet you don't have to make them struggle with something that's always going to be difficult for them. Yes?
As you're making these accommodations and modifications, how does this look in when you go to like Smarter Balance, and how does it get input into accommodations and modifications in the testing system?
In the testing system, I don't know if you guys want to jump in on that. I know some tests, they're still working on the electronic accommodation aspects. I know just reading stuff out loud to the student, having the student then be able to, I think, tell the teacher. I don't know exactly what they've come up with that specific test. I know, like with some standardized state tests in the past, only certain things you can modify or else it would make it invalid. And so then they would have to, put that all into the IEP differently. And usually we would go to the psychologist on that and ask them, what accommodations are we allowed to do without making those tests invalid? And that's the best advice I can give to you is that I always go back to the psychologist and say, okay, what can we do if we still want their standardized test to be valid, what accommodations are we able to put in? Yes.
I had a student in Del Mar, and I remember that while we were doing the CAPA testing, that I was helping the teacher do it, and there were some accommodations that were allowed. And so I just wanted to second what she said, that there were some things that I said she needed to do because she couldn't talk, she couldn't answer. She would be able to express her receptor only using a switch. She had things recorded, and she'd just say yes and no for the questions. Those were okay, but then when it came to giving her like expressive, because she couldn't say the words, it was hard for us to help her out in that sense. And of course, if we did it, then we had to write down what we did.
Okay, and then the next one, please. Okay, here's another sample case. So this student had mild CP and a visual impairment. So again, he had a difficult time getting his written work done. So what we ended up doing after the assessment, we put him on Read and Write Gold, which is a word prediction software program. Again, you see that as he's typing, it's predicting what word he's going to use next. This program, it learns their vocabulary. The more that they use it, it starts putting up those ideas that they use most often. So it kind of learns the student as they use it. So we're using that. You can see that we changed the contrast on it as well, so that we used a black background with the yellow font, again, to accommodate for the visual impairment, and increases the font size. At the end of his sentences, he would use the text-to-speech so that it would read it out loud to him, so that he can make sure that he really got down what he wanted on his document, made sure it sounded appropriate. Okay, and one more sample case. Oh, sorry. Do we have a question? No.
No, the bank ATM is behind.
Oh, okay. Okay, one more sample case. So this student had a difficult time reading. So basically, when I was working with her, she needed me to read most of the text out loud to her. And then there was a word bank, and she was able to tell me what words were going in. So her comprehension was there, but she needed some help with the reading of the text. And she did also have a difficult time writing. It was very laborious for her. So there were two things that we tried for her. We could scan it into, and thank you. We could scan it into the iPad, basically take a picture of it. It would scan it in with OCR text. I found that some of those apps are still in the process of working accurately. If the text is very clear and printed very nicely, it's a lot more accurate. But for the most part, it was able to read the text then back to her, and then she could go ahead and add the text box in and type it in. Another way to go about doing that and accommodating for these kind of issues is scanning the document into the computer. Using Adobe Acrobat Pro, you can go ahead and add the text box in so they can type it in. Again, if you needed to use your word prediction, the Read and Write Gold can be used anywhere in any program in the computer, so that would be a great thing to have up as well as they're doing it. And then also it could read the text back as she's doing it. So it would read the text, she can go ahead and type in her answers instead of doing it on a workbook. Okay, I think that's it.
Okay, so quickly, not going to get into vision and hearing too much, but so talking about vision and hearing assistive technology, so why would a student need it? If a student demonstrates trouble seeing or cannot see it at all, when the student has trouble hearing or cannot hear it, you know, for sure you want to consult your vision person and audiologist. Absolutely. So there's some examples. You could just read them there. Also, Jennifer talked about it a little bit, but everybody's using iPad now. There's built-in accessibility features that can accommodate for vision and hearing impairments. And so for vision, you can do zoom features, so it enlarges the screen. VoiceOver allows everything that you see on the screen to be read to you. High contrast settings that you can put in, closed captions. So lots of different assistive technology built into your iPads already and your tablets. I use it all the time, right, when I'm at a stoplight. Find the closest, I don't know, Mervyn's, or no, Mervyn's is out of, but, so in Kohl's, there you go. Shows you my age, okay. So, we can go to the next slide. Okay, so now we've talked about all this assistive technology. Now, where are we going to get the money? Right? That's a big issue. At the County Office of Education, we access funds through Medi-Cal funds. So Medi-Cal has a pot of money that is designated for educational purposes. So we access that. We also access low incidence funds. But in order to do that, the student has to have a specific disability listed on their IEP, and they also have to have a specific goal which addresses the equipment that you're going to be purchasing. And they're pretty strict about what the goal says. Every little element has to be in there if you're going to order the equipment. We also have Title I funds, and don't ask me about that because that's just money that that appears. So there's a whole committee on Title I funds. But also this is a website that you can go to that gives you ideas for different funding resources. I don't know if we want to go. Yeah, it's on the handout there. I think it's on one of the last pages.
On page 11.
It's something I forgot to mention. A lot of times with low incidence purchases, now a lot of times they're asking for an assistive technology report. So like if we're going to order a high-tech eye gaze communication system, they want to see the report where you went in and did trials because they're expensive. So sometimes, they do require a report. Okay, go ahead. Go to the next. So I'm not going to read this. This is a lengthy slide, but basically this is saying, you know, technology, assistive technology can be used for many kids, many of our students. You know, the idea of universal design, there's lots of different learners, and technology can be used, can be beneficial for students with and without disabilities. And it doesn't always need to be fancy, okay? You know, basically if they're having trouble doing something, try to find something that works. And again, don't try to do it by yourself. Pull in people that are experts. Okay, go ahead. Okay, and use the technology. Once you get that technology into your classroom, don't be afraid to use it. Try to familiar yourself with it. I mean, I go on YouTube a lot, so I get consultation, referrals for equipment that's in the classroom, and if we can't be experts on everything. It's so much. So a lot of times I go to YouTube, I YouTube something, or I go to the manufacturer's website, and I take video archive trainings. I sign up for trainings. I call. My gosh, I call. Sometimes we get emails. Oh my gosh, this device isn't working. I'm like, turn the device over. There's a 1-800 number on the back, and call them. So don't be afraid. And ask for help when you need it. I keep saying that, but you know, turn to your specialists and the people around you.
Yeah, and many of the websites, I know, we always kind of feel silly. Go online, you know, look it up online. But it's amazing, some of these companies, it's like, press this for a 1-minute tutorial. It's like, 1 minute, I got it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and even if you, the great thing is if you go to YouTube, a lot of people that are users of this technology do their own little webinars to teach you how to use it. And so what better way to learn how to use something than seeing an actual kid using it? So don't be afraid of YouTube. You might find some really good things there.
I just wanted to share one more thing. Like sometimes you have these devices with you and then you just call, I don't know what to do with it. And the customer supports, most of them do a wonderful job. And I had a problem with getting on a particular, system, and they actually could get into your computer if you're online, wireless. So please do use this resource.
Yes, many times. And I think, okay, so I think that's it. Are there any more questions? We have a couple of minutes for questions. Okay.